Hello and welcome back for a Manor Lord's Guide. And in this video I mainly wanted to talk about the food production, how it's changed and how you can grow to a massive town in the new update. So first things first, something you will probably notice straight away is the addition of mushrooms and eels. And plain and simple, this just adds another gathering food item to the very early game. We're all familiar with the gathering and hunting food items straight away. You've got your fish, berries and deer. Now we have mushrooms and eels, which just adds to the food variety. Something else to take note of is when hovering over different food icons on the map, we're presented with additional information, which brings us to the new Environments tab. So this is pretty significant in relation to food production, but put simply, all your regions will now have an environment, and the environment is made up of different biomes which all offer benefits that affect production, meaning there's a lot more room to tailor your buildings and production in a region specific to the biomes. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, in the early game it's best to focus on the gathering, fishing and hunting options available to you, as these will quite comfortably get you through the first winter of the game without too many issues. So once you have a basic town that is producing some food from gathering and hunting, and providing enough firewood to see out your first winter, where the food shortages come in because food is more scarce in the winter, you can set up more stable food production in preparation for the spring and summer. And I feel that having 1 to 3 burgage plots with big gardens for veggie patches will give you a lot of sustained food for the coming years in the game. And here we're introduced to another change from the update, and that's seeds. So now we have to first make the garden a vegetable patch, and then we get to choose one of 3 seeds to plant, as opposed to just the regular veggie patch that we purchased pre the update. And the seeds cost regional wealth. The cost varies depending on the size of the vegetable patch, and each vegetable has different grow times and yields, which is just really nice attention to detail if you ask me. So before you set your vegetable gardens up, you're going to need a little bit more regional income beforehand. So I think a really great way to get around this is get the trading post earlier and start selling off some of your items you will already have a lot of: planks, charcoal, firewood, all the wood produced items that you can get, because you're going to have an excess of that in the earlier game just by building your town up. So you may as well put them to use. A top tip here is to build your plots with the room to extend the housing, so you get the extra hands into the field around critical harvest times. This is an idea of a basic design, one that's pretty well known, but you can see it's got the extra space for the housing and it's going to be a pretty big garden patch as well. So now with the garden patches ready and seeds purchased for the plots, going forward you have some pretty strong food production. Just make sure the people who are living on the plots are actually working in the vegetable gardens when needed. Now here we come to a bit of a crossroads really, and maybe a desire to get your farmhouse set up going. But at this point in the game it's a bit too labour intensive, and balancing food production with other requirements is a very real thing. So I would recommend don't do this just yet. Instead, I would recommend getting orchards and animal pens going, as this will use the plots you already have and use much less labour and capital investment. Orchards now use the same mechanic as your vegetable patches. They require seeds, and there's also more variety types, which is great for approval rating. As well as orchards, you also have the animal pens on your burgage plots. They're level 1 startup, they're very low cost, easy to get going. You just have to make the pen and buy the animals. And now you can see they provide 2 types of meat and hides. The apiary is another option here too, especially if you have more of a meadow biome in your starting zone, as this will help improve your crop yields later on. So once all of these food chains are online, you should be able to grow your settlement to a decent size, whilst managing other tasks that arise. There'll be other requirements to be met along the way. Now all of your buildings require tools for maintenance. This is something you'll have to think about, which will require you to move your labour force around a little bit. Something to get used to now in prep for big farming is to make yourselves familiar with the seasons tab. This just gives you more of an outline of what jobs will need doing in what months, so you can tailor your labour accordingly. You can also take a look and start playing around with the Records tab. This is a new feature that can show you a lot of useful information involving trade and production. It gives you a really nice visual and detailed representation of what is going on in the game. So now you've grown your town to a pretty respectable level, and it's quite hard to put a timing on when to build the farmhouse exactly, as it has 8 available slots for labour. I would say when you get to a point of growth where you can comfortably spare 6 to 8 workers, or 25 to 30 burgage plots. It's hard to be exact because you can adjust your labour force accordingly. If you focus a little bit more on micromanagement, you might be able to do it a little bit earlier. Now, assuming you've placed your fields on the most fertile spots available to max the returns on your labour, you can still see how much labour is actually needed to get the fields working here. This is why it's necessary for your town to be a certain size before starting this type of farming. Wheat and rye grain are definitely valuable in terms of food production, as they will feed the mills, which will feed the bakeries, so you can get bread online, which will really boost the food in your economy. So once some time has passed, you've pulled in a few harvests, you've built your mill and a bakery extension on one of your level 2 plots, you can see you can grow your town to a pretty massive size and also fulfill all level 3 burgage requirements. You'll have no issues with supply to the town, so you could essentially just stack what you're doing and grow it indefinitely almost. Another top tip here, now you're used to the grow cycles involved in farming, you definitely want to make sure your fields are getting past the sowing phase in time for summer so you can harvest before the winter. Just something to keep an eye on. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope it helps when building your new towns. A few things to take away: I definitely didn't mention everything new or every mechanic, but using this guide you should be able to grow a town to a pretty big size and fulfill all requirements to help you complete each scenario. Once again, thanks for watching.